A night at the treehouse. The first time we climbed the treehouse, we were 12 and invincible. It wasn't much more than 4 slabs of wood, nailed haphazardly between 2 old oaks in Jensen's backyard. But to us, it was a fortress, elevated above the mundane world, untouchable by parents or rules or the stale grip of school routines. Back then, we stayed up there until the sky bruised with twilight, and the cicadas screamed like they were warning us of something we were too young to understand. 10 years later, we climbed it again, but this time, we weren't kids. Jensen's parents had sold the house last summer, but the new owners hadn't touched the tree line out back, and the old treehouse somehow was still standing. It leaned hard to the left, the rope ladder replaced with moldy planks nailed straight into the bark, one gust away from collapse. Naturally, we dared each other to sleep in it, just like old times, I said, gripping the lowest plank. You mean bug bites and cheap flashlights? Jensen smirked. Lena showed up last, as always, and tossed her duffel bag with a dramatic thud. We're doing this or not? That was the moment things started feeling strange. Not eerie, not yet, but charged, like the static just before a summer storm hits. We brought everything we thought we'd need. Sleeping bags, 2 flashlights, 3 bags of chips, and a bottle of whiskey someone's older brother wouldn't miss. By 10 p.m., the forest was breathing around us, loud and alive. Crickets chirped with military precision, and somewhere in the brush, something too big for a raccoon kept rustling. Jensen brushed it off. Just a possum or something. Possum or something. It was always or something, wasn't it? Jim didn't talk about the 4th flashlight, the one that flickered on by itself. We found it halfway buried in the corner of the treehouse, wedged under a rotting board. It still worked, sort of. The beam twitched like it was shorting out, but the batteries were fresh. That was the first thing Lena checked. She didn't say anything, just turned it off and set it aside like it hadn't happened. Then we heard the knock. Not below us. Above. You ever feel gravity reverse? Like your spine remembers something before your brain does? That's what it felt like. We froze, all 3 of us staring at the ceiling of the treehouse. A hollow sound, wood on wood, just once, like something had stepped on the roof. But there was nothing up there. When Jensen finally looked outside, he said the trees hadn't moved, not even a sway, but I saw the way he held his breath. That's when Lena pulled out the notebook. Not just any notebook, the notebook. We used to scribble in it when we were kids. Ghost sightings, clues, secret codes we thought were real. It had a drawing of the treehouse's blueprint, a stick figure map of the yard, and a page titled Rules for the Watch. We hadn't seen it in 10 years. And yet, there it was, clean, unwrinkled, sitting in her lap. I didn't bring this, she said. No one said anything for a while. Then Jensen reached out, slow, like the notebook might bite. He turned to the last page. There was only one line, written in thick red ink. You brought it back. Now it waits. He dropped the notebook. I would have laughed, should have laughed, but my throat felt too tight. And then the 4th flashlight turned on again. This time, it wasn't flickering. It was pointing directly at the trapdoor. Here's the part I can't explain. Not fully. The trapdoor was open. We always kept it shut, We had just shut it. We heard the latch click. I know Jensen locked it, but now it was open, yawning beneath us like a black mouth, and that flashlight was beaming straight into it, as if something down there wanted to see our faces. And we saw its, just for a second. Not even that. A smear of white. A glint. Eyes. Lena kicked the flashlight. It tumbled out the opening and vanished below. We waited for the clatter. Nothing. Just silence. Jensen whispered, "We have to go down there." No one moved. And yet, the longer we stared at the opening, the more it felt like something was staring back, waiting. Maybe it always had been. I could tell you what happened next, but it won't make sense on its own. And anyway, what you really want to know isn't why we stayed up there. You want to know why we went back up. And I promise I'll tell you once you understand what we found underneath. Because what we heard next, it wasn't just the knock. Again, it was a voice whispering Jensen's name from inside the tree. Jensen. It said his name the way only someone who's known you since before you were born can say it. Slow, low, like it had permission. But none of us recognized the voice. It came from beneath the treehouse, from somewhere between the roots and the dirt. We were too frozen to speak. Jensen looked at me, then at Lena, like maybe he was waiting for one of us to tell him we heard something different, something normal. But Lena just mouthed the word, "Run." He shook his head. He whispered back, "It said my name," which was true. But why his name? Why not mine? Why not Lena's? And what did it mean? "You brought it back." We didn't leave the treehouse, not yet. Instead, we closed the trap door again, quietly, and Jensen pushed his backpack over it, like that was going to stop whatever it was. The air turned heavier by the second, like breathing through cotton. We sat with our backs to the walls, flashlights off, listening. And that's when the scratching started, but not from outside, from inside the treehouse walls. Jensen pressed his ear to the plank behind him. Then he flinched and jerked away. "There's something moving in the wall." "In the wall." He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and flipped on the flashlight. And then he found it. A seam. A thin, vertical crack in the back wall, like a door had been hidden there all along. One we'd never noticed as kids. One that wasn't on the old notebook's blueprint either. "I'm opening it," he said. "No, you're not," Lena and I said at the same time. But of course, he was already reaching for it. Inside the crack was a hollow, maybe a foot wide, barely enough space to hide something. But there it was, an object wrapped in faded cloth, tied with twine. Jensen pulled it out, held it like it might shatter, and placed it between us. I wanted to ask what it was, but I didn't, because I already knew. It was the jar. We used to bury things in jars around the yard. Secrets, trinkets. One time, we sealed a dead wasp in honey because we thought it might come back to life. But this jar was different. It was wrapped too carefully, hidden too precisely. And inside, floating in a thick amber resin, was something we never would have put there. A tooth. Human, maybe. Old. Cracked. Too big for any of us. There was something else in the jar, too. A slip of torn notebook paper, browned with age. And even though the jar was sealed, the resin hardened around it. we could still read the first word, return. We argued, of course. Lena said we should throw it back into the woods. Jensen wanted to open it. I didn't know what I wanted, because the longer we stared at it, the more the treehouse seemed to shift. Not sway, shift. Like the space around us didn't fit anymore, like the trees had grown inward. That's when the notebook slid across the floor. By itself, it stopped right in front of Jensen's foot. He didn't touch it, just leaned forward and flipped it open. Another new page, new ink. 4 words. Put it in the trunk. We should have asked more questions right then and there. Like, what happens if we don't? Who's writing this? Why us? But instead, Jensen stood up, jar in hand, and opened the trapdoor. Lena and I followed. Because what else were we going to do? The flashlight he dropped earlier was gone. Just gone. No beam, no battery sputter, and when Jensen climbed down the plank ladder, every rung creaked like it could snap. I stayed close behind him. Lena was last. We hit the ground, and the trees didn't feel like the same trees. They were too close now, too tall, too quiet. No breeze, no bugs, no sound, except for the soft, steady scratching from the base of the tree. Jensen found the trunk after just a few steps. It wasn't a literal trunk, not exactly. It was a hollow in the base of one of the oaks, like a mouth left ajar. Inside was a cavity, just big enough to hide something, the size of, He knelt and placed the jar inside. We waited. The air pressed tighter around us, like the woods were holding their breath. Then we heard it. 1 down, 2 to go. And this time, it said my name. You heard that too, right? I asked. Lena nodded slowly. Her hand was clutching the strap of her bag, like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Jensen didn't respond. He was still crouched by the tree, staring into the hollow, jar gone, like maybe it had vanished into something deeper than the trunk itself. Then he stood up. 2 to go, he said under his breath, repeating it like a curse, and I knew exactly what he meant. The swing, the pond. We used to play this game, 3 kids, 3 spots. One chose a place to bury a memory, and the others had to find it. We buried coins, wrappers. Even that time Lena buried a frog skeleton she found in the garden. She said it was an offering. She was always a little strange. The treehouse was always the center, and the rest, the swing, the pond, the hill, those were our corners of the triangle, and we'd forgotten why we stopped playing. Until now. We made our way to the swing next. No one said a word. No one needed to. The old rope still hung limp from the branch, frayed like hair. The seat was just a cracked wooden board, tilted with age. I touched it just to steady myself, and felt something shift beneath my feet. There was something buried under it. Of course there was. Jensen dropped to his knees and started digging with his hands. No hesitation, like he'd been told exactly where to dig, like it wasn't him doing it. The dirt came away easily, too easily, almost like it wanted to be removed. And then we saw it. Another jar, but this one wasn't sealed, in resin. This one was still wet, the glass foggy, the lid barely screwed on. Inside, swimming in a cloudy red liquid, was a folded piece of fabric, and inside that, a little blue inhaler. My inhaler. From when I was 8. My throat tightened, and not just from the cold. I thought I lost that. No, Lena said, voice thin. You buried it. You remember? You couldn't breathe that day. We found you. But she stopped talking, because I did remember. Barely. I had collapsed that day, face in the dirt, chest caving in. They carried me to the porch. I never found the inhaler again, because it was here, all along. I wanted to throw it away. I wanted to crush the jar under my boot, scatter the pieces, scream at the trees, until they gave us back our normal summer night. But I didn't, because the notebook was open again. New page, new ink. This time, it didn't ask. It commanded, take it to the water. We looked at each other just once. Then we walked. The pond sat on the far end of the property. It hadn't changed, at least not on the surface. Same reeds, same dark surface, same smell of algae and something just a little sweet. I stopped at the edge, the jar warm, in my hands, the liquid inside pulsing like it had a rhythm, like it had a heartbeat. Jensen stepped behind me. You don't have to. But I already knew I was going to, not because I believed in whatever was happening, but because something in me needed this to end, or at least to move. I stepped into the water, just a few feet, just until it reached my knees. Then I lowered the jar. The moment it touched the surface, the ripples stopped, like glass. I let go. It sank, and the whisper came again, this time behind us. One more. Her turn. We turned. Lena was gone. We spun around, calling her name, once, twice, then louder, but the trees swallowed it whole. The clearing was empty. No footsteps, no rustling leaves, just a silence too thick to be natural. Lena, I shouted again. Nothing. Then the notebook, still in Jensen's hand, fluttered violently, pages flipping as if caught in a wind only it could feel, until it stopped, right in the center, and a page was gone, not torn, not cut, removed, like it had never been there to begin with. What does it mean? I asked, though I already felt the answer forming like a knot in my chest. It means we're not writing the story anymore, Jensen said. We ran. Back to the treehouse. Back to where this all began. The climb up the planks felt steeper, the night air colder. When we got inside, the space had changed again. The walls seemed farther apart. Or maybe the ceiling was lower. I couldn't tell. But the worst part, Lena's bag was still there, sitting neatly in the corner, as if she had never left it behind, as if she had never left at all. Jensen dropped the notebook on the floor. It landed with a thud, heavier than it should have been. He flipped back to the front, back to the map of the yard, the triangle we used to draw. Treehouse, swing, pond. But now, there was a fourth corner, a new mark, a smudge of ink, where nothing used to be. An X, at the hill, the one behind the house, the place we were never supposed to go. We used to joke it was haunted. We'd dare each other to run to the top and back before sunset, but no one ever did, not even Jensen. Now it wasn't just a joke. Now it was a question. What's at the X? The walk was shorter than I remembered, or maybe we were moving faster, but as we crested the hill, our flashlights landed on something we'd never seen before. A door, built into the earth. Old wood rotting around the hinges. No handle, no lock, just a rusted iron ring in the center. Jensen looked at me. Together? Yeah, we pulled. The door groaned open like something alive was holding it shut, and the smell hit us instantly, like wet stone and forgotten things. A narrow staircase spiraled downward into the dark. We descended, and every step we took felt wrong, like the air was being rewritten behind us, like reality was thinning. The notebook stayed open in Jensen's hand, glowing faintly with a pale green light now. The ink on the most recent page was still drying. This time, it didn't whisper. It warned. Don't speak. Don't run. Don't remember. At the bottom, the tunnel opened into a room, carved from rock, stone walls lined with markings we couldn't read, and at the center, a chair, a wooden chair, facing away from us. Someone was sitting in it, hair falling over her shoulders. Familiar. Too familiar. Lena, I whispered. The figure stirred, turned her head slowly, and when I saw her face, it wasn't Lena, but she was wearing Lena's hoodie. Jensen stepped forward. The notebook glowed brighter. The girl in the chair lifted her hand slowly, then pointed at him, and spoke in Lena's voice. You forgot the last one. He froze. What last one? He whispered. But he already knew. And so did I. There had never been just 3 corners of our game. There was a fourth, the one none of us ever wanted to talk about, because it wasn't just about burying toys and secrets. It was about burying what we did. What happens if we remember? I asked, barely audible. But she didn't answer, because behind us the stone began to rumble. The tunnel was closing, and Jensen dropped the notebook, because the next page had already written itself. One must stay. The tunnel was crumbling, stone shifting, dust curling like smoke around our ankles. Jensen looked at the notebook, then at me, then back at the girl in the chair. I'll do it, he said. Wait, I said. We don't even know what stay means. But he wasn't listening, because I think he already remembered, and maybe that was the point. We had lied all those years ago. It wasn't just a game. Not really. There was something in the hill, something we found or maybe uncovered, and we made a deal. 3 secrets buried to keep one truth down, but 4 of us made that deal, and only 3 walked away. Jensen took one slow step toward Risisblur, the girl, toward the chair, toward the memory wrapped in someone else's skin. The notebook in his hand faded, ink draining, pages curling inward, as if it was aging in real time. I grabbed his arm. You don't have to. I do, he said. You didn't bury the inhaler. I did. I just told you you lost it. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. You never remembered. The chair creaked as he sat down, and everything stopped. No dust, no sound. Even the light froze, like a paused movie. And then the girl in the hoodie, if you could still call her that, turned to me. She opened her mouth, but didn't speak. Instead, she breathed. One long exhale, and Jensen was gone. I ran. I don't remember how long. I don't remember the stairs, or the door, or the woods. But I remember the hill, standing at the top, alone, looking back down at the treehouse lit faintly by the moon, and something standing at the window, watching. It waved. When I got home, the notebook was in my bag. I never packed it, but it was there, every page blank, except one. At the very back, it just said, "Want to play again?"